Okay, hi everybody, it's Christina Merkley, and I have a guest today, a very important and dear to my heart guest, Bridget Nielsen. Hello, welcome Bridget.
Thank you so much. Yes, hi.
Hi, good to have you here. Bridget's in Sedona, I'm in Victoria, BC. I'm doing this interview particularly for my Practical Energy Work course, and these folks are interested in anything related to energetics. I'm a business consultant by background, and I had a Kundalini opening in 09-ish, and also a very interesting visitation with some light orbs that created this whole kind of activation and expansion with me, hence me connecting up with Bridget Nielsen at some point. So the folks who are attracted to me may already be comfortable with these kinds of topics, and or they're beginning to open up to them. So that's kind of the context of how this is being held. And so that will be why I'm asking various questions and leading Bridget in various ways for this, because I'm selfishly wanting to get information out of her for my particular students. But this might go to some folks who you are connected with as well. So it just gives them a little bit of context.
For sure, yes.
I'm going to share real quick. Let's see if I can do this. I'm what's called a visual practitioner, so hence the visuals and stuff behind me. And part of what I do and teach other people to do is tap into some of the right brain abilities and this method called graphic facilitation or graphic recording. So I've got some quick little doodles up here, and I think probably when Bridget's going along, I don't do this with all my guests, but I've been inspired by the creativity of you to do this. So I think as we're talking along, I'm going to do my best to graphically record this, and I'll occasionally bring it up onto the screen to just show it and to talk to things. But we have a real basic agenda. There's basically two things I want us to talk about, and probably more will happen. But everybody who I invite in, I attract a lot of process professionals. That's just a term I use for people who work with other people. So people who work with groups, maybe in the corporate setting or service sector, and then people who work with individuals. And those individuals, they might be in coaching, counseling. You're a very unique process professional, right? With the individuals that you work with.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start there like I do with everybody, which is Bridget's path as a process professional. What does she do? Who is she now? And she probably has a future self like we all do that's continuing to emerge here. So we'll talk about what kind of process work that you do, which is very unique, and then how you kind of got there, right? Your path to a development path to getting there. And then I had the real pleasure of meeting up with you. I, like many people, have been kind of following your YouTube videos and things, and you had Bridget offers many different experiences, some of them in person. So I took advantage of joining her in Mexico earlier this year and had a really wonderful experience. And my instincts to go and meet you were really, in my opinion, bang on, because we really hit it off and really connected.
Totally.
And I love your energy. And one of the things that you were explaining and teaching and to many of us present, which had a real big impact on me, was the vibrational food.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, as we make our way here in this conversation, I want to get into the vibrational food aspect, because for many people, especially the ones that are probably listening to this recording, that's an important aspect, especially as your energetic shift, which has happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so let me turn off the sharing, because I want to have you up full screen instead of the doodles, but I'll flash those occasionally. And let's start with who you are as a process professional. What do you do now? What kinds of folks are you working with? I'm one of the people that you work with.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm like a lot of your people, or maybe you have a range. So tell us a bit about that, and then how you came to be doing that.
Yeah, I work with a range of people, I would say. I mean, all the way from, I've worked with like 12-year-olds all the way up to, 65-year-olds. So, and then
Cool.
very, very equally men and women. So it's just, and all around the world. Mm-hmm. So it's very much so, it doesn't matter kind of like the particular demographic. It's just really those people that have had an internal click on to connect with the higher aspects of themselves and the higher aspects of themselves spiritually, and the higher aspects of themselves cosmically, and all of that kind of intertwines with coming alive, I would say, to sum it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up. And that's something that's so authentic and real about you. Me as a grumpy old Gen X.
You're not grumpy.
I feel grumpy in comparison to you. Your energy is so delicious, right? And I'm like, damn. But we all serve a role. So, and that's legit with you, that vibrancy and that aliveness and that pure kind of energy. So cool. So people who are jonesing for that and opening up to that find their way to you, and you're helping with that unfold.
Yeah, there's something about it. I guess like there's this whole zombie analogy, and like they'll like the idea of zombie apocalypse, but really kind of we're all zombies right now. So it's like any zombie that's getting a heartbeat back.
Wow.
You know, that's coming online, and it can be just from coming online to all the way to, whoa, I'm having like crazy, like you, Kundalini experiences and fully remembering my infinite nature. So it's anywhere along that line.
Mm-hmm. Great. So one doesn't just automatically wake up one day and start doing this kind of stuff and have a practice like this. So anything that you feel comfortable sharing about the development path of how this unfolded for you?
Yeah, for me, it was actually a beautiful gradual unfoldment, which I'm really grateful for now that actually people in the past 2 months are actually waking up overnight. And I'm like, whoa, that's, and like fully having to kind of span the gap that I did in maybe like 8 to 10 years, they're spanning it in 2 months. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's a whole other thing, but we've paved the path. You know, there's been many that have paved the path so that people can easily integrate very quickly. So for me, just kind of classic spiritual development and personal development. I was lucky enough to have my awakening in Los Angeles, which was already ripe hotbed for all spiritual metaphysical techniques and an open conversation around the subject. So it was kind of like I was in this fertile ground to take in and really be supported as I was discovering all things from my like ancestral, blocks and ancestral gems, and to work through those different categories, all my personal things, like childhood things, parent things, collective things, metaphysical things, working with other dimensions. So along all these different lines of experience, I was really getting to explore and have a lot of time and a lot of really good teachers to help me along that path.
There certain kinds of, you don't have to go into people's names, but I'm curious about modalities. That's part of the thing I'm getting into in practical energy work, right? Is the various ways people can unlock these aspects of themselves. So when you're talking about getting into your family of origin stuff or your lineage, right? Epigenetic kind of work, were there certain modalities and techniques and stuff you were drawn to, and if so, what were they?
Yeah, I was definitely drawn to shamanism and worked a lot with shamanism, and working with soul retrieval work.
That makes sense.
That's huge. It's huge. Just to reclaim those soul aspects of ourselves and to unlock those trauma or like just blocked aspects. So soul retrieval was a big one. And then, I mean, it was slightly shamanic, but with family constellation work, working with the ancestry. I did that for years. So working in that category. And one of my teachers was talking about how she's kind of figured out there's like 6 categories of where you can be blocked, whether it's early childhood, adolescence or adulthood. So there's something in there, or it's past life, ancestral, or collective. And I found that was pretty darn spot on. I'm like, all right, yeah, it's pretty much in those categories. And I think maybe in the modern times of kind of extraterrestrial thing, there's also interdimensional, I guess you could say, interference or stuff. But I would say that's still karmic and like past life kind of things too.
Yeah, multidimensional aspect of oneself. Yeah. Cool. This is really good. This is right in line with practical energy work. And some of these modalities are the ones that I cover as well. And I love what you're expanding. We have different things we do. It's called Orphan Rescue, one of them, very similar to soul retrieval work.
Yeah.
Who inside is uncomfortable. And sometimes we really, it can be an earlier adult aspect of us, an adolescent, a young child, even pre-verbal. And then you go beyond that,
Yes.
right? Into the, I don't know why I'm picking up on this thing that I don't relate to as who I am now, right? And some people are aware of that past life, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I like the multi-D kind of lingo for that.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to just go with it and where it leads you, and it can be very therapeutic for what's going on in the now and the challenges one is having.
Oh yeah.
So I'm guessing it unlocked a lot for you as you did these various things.
Definitely unlocked a lot for me that made me able to kind of be where I am today. I mean, so many people, especially opening up to energetic work, have been shamed and killed for for opening to these things in the past. And I've seen that that's one of the biggest blocks that people have, besides, early childhood sensitivity. It's just like these other lives where they're burned at the stake as a witch, and they're like, dude, I'm not telling anyone about my spiritual experiences or sensitivities or psychic abilities in this life. And it's like, okay, great, that was another life, let's work on that. Let's, that it's for the beauty and the sake of these other lives, even, that we get the opportunity to be free to speak about these things today. And it's really a coming of full circle, and it's our duty in this incarnation to really let those things be healed and let them come into full fruition.
Because we can do it now. It's a different time space, and we're treated differently.
Yep.
To some extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So as you unfolded and did these various things and basically did your own alignment work, right?
Yeah.
What were you, how did you come to start working with people?
It was one of those things that's so fun, you doing all the visual stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, could you have done my curriculum for school? Because during school, it was just I couldn't comprehend things. So once I was out of school, that was the big opening to be able to be free, of the constructs of, it opened up my whole mind and sphere. And as I was doing all these different trainings and just personal development, I realized that this is something that it was very natural to me. It was it was something that I've already done before in other lives. It was just right at the surface of me to express and ripe. And so as I was doing all the trainings and just personal work, I was like, well, I'm already starting to help other people in the classes, or I already have that propensity. So I'm like, let's just do this. And so I just started, after these different trainings and years of experience, just started working with people. And it was fun because, at the time I was, 23 or something. And I would, 60-year-old ladies would come in, and it was this strange thing where I'm this young person, but there's this old wisdom from other times. And it was just yep, this is what it is. Let's do this. And so it was fun starting out really doing that.
I can relate to that because I had some similar experiences being younger myself, not so much with the metaphysical, but more with, to some, with the hypnotherapy and with visuals. But I can totally attest, me being one of your older clients, right? How natural that is, right? And that there's this kind of a morphing that happens where you can kind of feel that larger, wiser aspect of yourself, even though I'm looking at this remarkably lovely young woman, right? But the depth of what you carry and what you hold is there and is palpable, and seems very natural to come into relationship with that. And then those various aspects of client and you working together with each other.
Yeah. And the reverse, me seeing the youthfulness and the vigor, honestly, of all of my clients. And it's bringing that back out. It's because that gets so washed out, in our culture. It's nope, sorry, you're over that threshold. And it's no, that's not true at all.
Right.
let's keep all these archetypes intact through the whole lifetime.
Yeah. And, you know, with talking about, I'm glad you brought up the past lives and multi-D experiences and going into the persecution from previous experiences and why that's difficult for people,
Yeah.
you know, in the now when they start to wake up. And especially if they're like you and me and probably a lot of people watching this where they are more process professionals, right? And they have to work through this, in these invisible kind of barriers about why it's uncomfortable or why they don't want to be seen. And in our world with the internet, you know, you've done this very beautifully with your YouTube and your web presence, right? You just kind of jumped out there and we're vulnerable and we're very authentic. And I think it's a huge part of the reason of your success and your renown is because of that energy, right? And so many of us are blocked and uncomfortable. I mean, I'm in a unfolding process with this, and there's some things I'm uncomfortable with putting out there, right? So tell us a bit about how that first happened for you getting out on the web, and then I want to segue more into the multi-D and, for lack of a better word, the ET experiences.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I really am grateful. I didn't understand it as I was going through this, but I'm really grateful to have grown up like where I did and kind of have the constraints that I did, because it made me able to be so exposed and vulnerable and express. So growing up like in a very Mormon culture, very conservative culture, I was the black sheep culture. It really helped me. Like as I like talk about it more, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. And it's kind of looking at these situations. I mean, if for anyone watching and going, wow, it is going to come back to a place where it served you. But it really helped me because I was always not understood. I was always the black sheep. I was always weird. I mean, I was raised vegetarian. So I was like, not only was I non-Mormon, I'm like freaking eating pita sandwiches with sprouts and avocado, like in second grade, and the kids are like eating chips next to me and they're like, what the heck? Like, are you doing? And so, so I was used to this, and I built kind of a wall and kind of like a strength and almost like an excitement to kind of be like, I'll show you. Like I had that rebelliousness, and it came from a place of like, you know, ultimately I didn't feel like valued or loved by the people around me. So it was from a place of hurt, but it built
handy hurt,
and it built the ability for me to be like, you know what, it's okay if people don't like me. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to speak my truth. And if there and there was always one person, you know, I always had a friend, you know, I always had so that carried me through. And so I feel like as I started to come into the public sphere and be seen by many, I was already.
You already had that figured out at a young age. That's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, let's do this. You didn't
care about what others thought, and even more, you were kind of spurned on by that. I'm going to be who I am, whether you like it or not. Here you go. Exactly. You're not going to hurt me. Yeah. Yep. Cool. Yep. And then what you did, for those who, probably the people who are watching it from you will know this, right? But for some of the folks who I'm introducing you to, they've never heard of you. So you have a treat in front of you, because you've got all sorts of material out there on the web, particularly your YouTube channels, right? So that's what Bridget did. She started to tell her story vulnerably out there. And I understand there was a radio show involved early on too.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, as I came into my extraterrestrial experiences and connections, you know, with the cosmos, I was like, and bumping up against lack of disclosure in that category by our collective governments and such. I was like, okay, I need to disclose. I need to share this as a disclosure within myself. And so I did, and I made my first YouTube video just to for my own personal process. And then it was on the biggest radio station in Los Angeles the next day. So it was
the next day.
I'm like,
you didn't even have to think about it. It was just boom, here you go. Yeah. Yep. Amazing.
So it was meant to go big, and I was meant to face that next level of exposure.
And you do it in a way, again, I admire this, and you teach me by watching your example. You do it in a way that's very fun, but also like gracious, and because people will poke fun, right? There's a ridicule factor.
Yeah.
And do you have you, is it a conscious philosophy that you had, or it's given these experiences as you learned how to deal with how over the years people respond to somebody different, right? Like some people come with it as a fight mode, right? Like that's something I need to kind of quell in myself, that I'll have more of a bristly kind of reaction to somebody somebody making fun of me or not believing me. And I might come at that a little more strong, but you don't do that strong thing, that pushback, or at least I haven't seen that from you. How would you describe it, or is there something going on within you as you receive that kind of energy, how you respond to it differently?
It's a good question. I haven't actually like consciously thought about it, but as I do, I'm realizing that it's one of two things. One, my dad, as you know him, he's very charismatic. So I was used to being around a very charismatic person. And so because he's that way, I've like learned how to be likable, even in the face of like not being liked. So it's kind of like where you have that and it's like, well, it's not going to help if you come up against it with force. Like it's definitely going to like hit that wall. So there's this charismatic part where it's like, okay, that wins. Like people like that no matter what the content is. And all of this is subconscious, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Realizing it as we're talking.
Teasing it out of you right now.
Yeah. So I think that one is a big one. And then the other one is I've used my empathic abilities for the good. So I'm like, okay, and that was one of the things that I had as a kid, is I would like sit on the playground for all of elementary school, and I just observed. Like I just watched the different social groups. I just observed like why these kids liked these kids, why these kids weren't liked, what was going on like socially. And so from that, I think like that building up in me and seeing like what works, what doesn't work within the social game, I'm like, okay, well, as I come out with this information, I'm like, who am I talking to? So I can tune into them and like I can hear from their perspective. And so then I can play with that perspective of what they're thinking and morph it to work with me and to have it be like to diffuse it before it even is fused. So
and you bring it out too, like you know, if you're kind of sensing in to their take on things, sometimes you bring it out even before they have a chance to get to it. Right? And yeah cool.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm like, I didn't quite know how I was doing it, but I think that's where it came from.
Yeah, I was watching or listening to a radio show you did recently with a couple of guys who they were great. They had real camaraderie, and they must be an ongoing radio show and stuff, and that's part of their shtick. But it was really interesting to watch over the course of the interview how it really softened. And they were genuinely, at least one or two of them, maybe out of the three, were genuinely curious, you know, once they kind of got over the, well, part of your handle, if you will, is around hybrid children. So we should probably go there and explain that a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, these radio hosts were going. First off, there's the multidimensional or the ET experiences, right? That's a big one for a lot of people, just to talk about that. But then you're also going further, which is, no, there's some interactions happening here. And I'm a baby mama, right? So explain that, because I've thrown out these words, and some of them for my people might be new words or new concepts. So I'm curious how you will explain them. And then this is part of what, you know, the way you explain them and the energy that you carry around is also what you're modeling for people around it, because you do it in a serious way, but also an engaging way.
Yeah, let's see I
see how
right
you do now. So you better be serious and engaging. There you go.
Woo, let's do this. Okay. Well, the easiest way to talk about it is, okay, most people know about alien abductions, and alien abductions did happen.
Break
So,
it down a little bit, because not necessarily, right? So I'm
okay,
coming from a left-brainer crowd who's starting to open up to their clairsentient abilities, and then they're starting to realize, oh, maybe in some of these recollections, I have remembrances or dreams or experiences that are unusual.
yeah. So a lot of people have ET experiences. A lot of them are with their other future selves that are very positive, benevolent ETs that are helping Earth. And then some of them are with more malevolent ETs, but they have their own purpose in the greater awakening of Earth. So even malevolence is relative to the greater scope of things. So some of these, the ones that I'm talking about specifically are like the Greys, and there's lots of different kinds of Greys, but the Greys that did the actual like abducting, so they took people up to ships and took genetic material. And this is, and so it's like the classic kind of, 1950s, like a flying saucer comes up and like takes you. Like, so those kinds of things did happen, and they were actually like really, it happened a lot. And people might have missing time, people might have subtle dream memories, might have just fear about something coming into the room at night. Like it can be, a lot of different things for different people, but there's usually something, and it's probably coming up in you right now as you're listening. There's something that may have happened that is unexplainable. And their purpose in doing this is these Greys are a future timeline of Earth. So it's one of those things where if Earth went in a really bad direction, radiation, genetic modification, all these different things, you turn into the Greys. And the Greys then couldn't reproduce, couldn't continue on. So they, because of their technological advancement, they tunneled back in time to where the genetics hadn't been altered too much. And that's right now, that's the past 100 years. And so they took people from that time and took the genetic material to create 5 hybrid races to continue their genetics, which is our genetics, because they are us. So that's a big thing, bridge to gap. And to create benevolent civilizations to continue on, because they, by the nature of the program, because some people are like, well, what they were doing is bad. Well, they wanted these beings to continue, and the only way for them to continue was to have souls, to have like the plasma body back in themselves, to have the energetics. So they have to be to some degree benevolent for them to continue on these hybrid races. And so some of them are that aren't a part of the hybrid races were these kids that were created from our genetic material to come back to Earth and help bridge this gap to the stars. So it's like right now it's just like that's a whole thing, and it's very not, maybe there's a flying saucer, but it's not at all connected to this human experience, and it's not physical. So most people, it's still very energetic, but so there needs to be something to bridge that gap. And the hybrid kids, that is their purpose, is to be like, okay, well, we're your kids. And we were created in these experiences that have been pushed into your unconscious. And how can we bridge that non-physical, completely otherworldly gap of the cosmos, of your greater, expanse of your greater lineage? And the hybrid kids are going to help do that. And of course, kids, they're going to be we'll be more receptive to kids. There are kids, and and the light and levity of what they're bringing will help us open to that next stage of our human evolution.
Wow. So as you were doing these various modalities and getting into your own work and doing your healing work first on this physical experience, at some point it must have opened up in a way. Like, did you always have experiences of the classic kind of abduction story where it goes back from childhood, or was it when you started to get into these modalities that it started to unlock things for you, and then it step by step you gave us the big picture, but probably it didn't hit you over the head all at once like the big picture you just gave, it was this kind of gradual unfoldment for you to recognize that big picture within yourself and then with these other people that you've been working with.
Definitely an unfoldment. The only things I had in childhood were I had a deep, rich spiritual connection with the stars. Like I would just look at the stars at night. No one told me to do this, and I would just bawl, and I would just feel like my eternal connection. And so I knew there was something going on up there that was really, really rich and really real. And then there were some weird things, like I would miss periods, like when I was young, and I'd be like, Mom, I'm pregnant, and she's like, no, you're 13, like what are you? So there were some things that I can point back to that were a little bit that alluded to this whole thing, but there were no like distinct like, whoa, I remember an abduction. It was pretty buried. And so it wasn't until I was doing all these trainings and an alien abduction came up, and some of the girls in my group had been abducted, and they're sharing their experiences, and I'm tuning into them, and I'm like, that is real. Like they're straight up not making that up. And so I'm like, wow, okay, I have to like accept that this is a possibility. And then I just kept on getting more and more abductee clients. And I contacted the other people in my training, and I'm like, are you guys getting abductees? They're like, no. And so I'm like, okay, like obviously there's something. And so then I just started kind of digging and watching, scary abduction movies, and like kind of trying to just like pry it open.
Integrate it. Understand it and integrate it.
Yeah. And then I did, and then I got a regression, and then I remembered all my experiences.
And then you've been, as you've been remembering that, you've been talking about it, right? And that's part of what's going on in your YouTube. And then part of the remembrance is around these hybridization programs, and then around your own hybrid children. And obviously behind me, I'm an artist. You're an artist too. And part of what you did was start to draw out and paint out these people. Yeah. These beings. And that's part of what you do for others too, right? Part of your offerings is creating paintings and drawings for people of their hybrid children.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. We've used the word energetics here, and that's certainly been part of my path. Part of the painting behind me is one of my orb paintings, which happened around this time of this visitation. I had about 15 paintings that came out, and I understand them in hindsight, didn't necessarily understand them at the time. In the middle of it, this orb experience happened, and it's been unfolding ever since about what this means, and a lot of changes and shifts in my energetics. You were a vegetarian since a kid, so you kind of have a jump on a lot of the healthy vibrational eating stuff, maybe compared to the rest of us. But did you see that changing? Did your energetics, were they consistent all the way along, or as you started to get in here and into this conscious and unfold a lot and unlock a lot of this, did you notice things happening with your energetic body, or?
Yeah, I definitely did. I'm a real feeler. And so a lot of like these other incarnational memories, they're very visceral. And even like the abduction memories, they're like, I feel them in the cell memory of my body. So it's more like all of those memories I was unlocking access to, and like was re-experiencing through my body, which was really interesting. And then I definitely, like I have to like think back to that other version, but my clairvoyance wasn't on, like some, like a lot of these like all my extrasensory things. I was always empathic and, intuitive, but like these things turned on. Like it was like, boom, clairaudience, boom, like clairvoyance. And some of them I already had, but I just didn't know what they were. So yeah, these extra sensitivities absolutely started coming on, and deeper dream work and lucid dreaming and all kinds of stuff like that.
I'm just going to flash on the screen because I've been
madly
madly trying to do notes. It's hard to do both, right? Track and do this. because of that, but I'll build it more out as we go along. So there's a lot happening here with the path, with your path, and we're starting to make movement over here to the vibrational food discussion, right?
This is so cool.
And you've all the way down here, I've got the Mormon conservative culture, black sheep, weird, vegetarian. And so all the way along here, you're eating pretty well, and you're, I only know you at this stage of your life, but I'm going to assume there was that refreshing energy that you carry has probably been there all the way along with you. But as you get into these different recollections, there's a lot of expansion happening. Did you, you're known now, and you're guiding, we haven't used this word starseed yet, and I love your concept of star bloom that you're talking about. So how does the food fit into this? And what's the shift that's happened, that's also part of what you're doing in your YouTube, and maybe more things in the future here? It's been something that you've been helping me with. So how does food fit into this stuff? So what if you have multi-D experiences? How come your food needs to change, probably?
Yeah, well, gosh. I mean, it is one of those things, especially because there were these times where I was doing these trainings and certain people would just, be eating normal food and still doing these spiritual things. And I didn't understand it personally. But I guess the best way to bring it back would be and actually to integrate the starseed thing was when my brother came into this world. So I was 2 and then he was born. He was extremely sick. He was colic, deathly ill, just like not doing well. And part of it is like, I think with the different generations, the different energetics, you can handle more of different things. But I'm using him as an example of a really sensitive, like attuned being. And he's like, wow, I can't even like be in this body because it is like toxic, So his vessel, his physical vessel, couldn't hold his energy properly. And so my dad, like, my grandma just got a juicer. She was very progressive in like the 1990s. And my dad read up on it and was like, wow, juicing can be so healthy. And so he put straight carrot juice in my brother's bottle for 3 days and everything went away. And and that just like really woke up my parents to this whole idea. So they went raw foodist and cleansed and blah, blah, blah. Landed on just being vegetarian and juicing. So I juiced, every day since I was a kid. Wow. And there were times where I was not healthy, eating Pizza Hut and like, chocolate milk for lunch. And that shows, like I look back at
you could see the difference.
Yeah, you can see the difference and you can feel the difference. Feel it. So, but the point is kind of coming back to this, like my brother is an example. It's like, as we're upgrading, as our energetics are upgrading, or as our DNA is upgrading, we cannot be in this physical vessel if it's toxic. And I think that's why a lot of people are having this like grounding issue and this like, I'm not in my body thing. And it's like, well, yeah, your spirit can't even fit, like like the meridians can't light up because it's clogged with stuff. And so it's a natural progression. It was a natural progression for me. And it's like, okay, time to let go of this, time to let go of this, time to let go of this. And Patrick, my boyfriend, like he really led us to the next upgrade, which was right when we moved to Sedona, and was like, you're eating gluten still? Like, get off gluten, get off soy, get off, like all these different things. And Sedona really made us do it. It was like, you cannot be in Sedona and want to go to this next level without really shifting your diet and really cleansing. And so it demanded it. And so we have, and we just were doing it for ourselves and just like really, doing our best and learning, because there's a lot of nuances to it. It's not as simple as like, I'm going to become a raw foodist. That is not, it's really integrating all of the wisdoms, like the Chinese medicine to the Ayurveda to the New Age superfoods, movement. It's really like integrating it all and really being intuitive about it, like weather, season, your body, and actually getting testing, like hair analysis, like truly seeing where you're at with it. Cause it's one of those things, especially with the spiritual aspects of us, that it's like, well, I just can't hack, animal products, and I just need to eat watermelon every day and eat fruit. And it's like, yeah, on like a maybe a spiritual mental level, but like, is that actually the best for your body right now? And so there's a lot to it, and I've been getting into it more because one of my friends, Corey Good, was like,
Just gonna bring them up. Yeah,
you can bring them up. So
yeah, well, it was exciting for me because I'm following along Cosmic Disclosure and watching Corey's stuff, and I've been following along watching yours, and all of a sudden the two come together. So it's and that's part of why I was in Mexico too, because Corey was there as well, and a nice small group of people, and his guidance from the Spearwing Alliance and Ra Teherer in particular, and the Anshars, I guess, is to clean up his diet. And he's getting a lot of pushback on that. And basically go to the woman in Arizona, which is you, to help do that. So that's what's really emerging here is as people are waking up more to who they are and they're encountering, like my understanding is Corey was having real problems with his digestion. And I see that myself to some extent, but a lot of the people that I attract, they might have celiac issues and dairy, again, just various things that you've rattled off. And I have an in-person workshop coming up, and one of the things I have to do now is kind of check with people about their food. Right? And it's a real variety of things that I have to accommodate for people. Yeah, and I think that's just a sign, right? Like more mainstream 3D world is just, oh yeah, it's now become this GF, the gluten-free stuff is really rising in consciousness. And this is part of the reason why is different kinds of people are coming in with different kinds of energetics. Their body, like your brother, can't take the regular way of doing things, right? So they're forced to kind of learn more and try various things to satisfy their body and not be in the pain and the various symptoms and things that they're getting. So this is a lens for some people to go, whoa, they're also waking up to, hey, I might be a star seed here. This is part of the reason why I'm having these digestive issues. And it makes sense when you look at the bigger picture here, right? Of needing to come on board with who you are, and especially as the energy keeps coming here, and as people do their work, they are being upgraded. So it has to get more and more refined. I had this interaction happen when we did Mexico. I told you I love my milk chocolate, and I haven't had milk chocolate since I came back from Mexico. And
wow.
It just fell away. Now I still got the chips. So, one thing at a time, but and I know my Kundalini was very activated there around you and in Mexico, and there's different things that are happening that I still don't fully understand from my left brain 3D perspective, but I trust it. And I trust this acclimatization process, or whatever it is, refinement process around the food, and needing to seek out people like yourself to understand more about it. So you were doing some things in Mexico, right? It was great because we were in like a controlled environment, and you hauled in food with you from various places to make sure that we were eating well. And can you explain just, I know this is a huge thing, so we're just going to just scratch on the surface, but as people are waking up to this, what become common beginning steps for people to take? You're kind of an extreme example in that you have been in community, and you've have this setup in your life where each of you kind of take it on, and you might cook for a couple of days, and you cook for everybody else in the community. And it's a nice way of kind of sharing these food prep things, but not everybody can do that. And so you make a segue. What are some of your recommended things for making a segue?
Number one, water. I'm going to even go the three things that a healthy cell needs to actually not even age, not even to be healthy is oxygen, is hydration, and is a way to detox. So kind of coming back even before like food, a breathing practice in some form, just conscious breathing, you know, because many of us like hold so much tension like in our stomachs, hold so much tension in our chest, you know, with anxiety, and just like consciously breathing throughout the day. And if you're not breathing, what in your life is making you not be able to breathe? So breathing is one big one. Clean water, and then getting off of the plastics. Oh my gosh, because even like we were using the 5 gallon, like we go and get spring water, or we'll go and get like really nice reverse osmosis but then restructured and remineralized and all this kind of water. But even like the containers, the BPA free containers, they're still leaching plastics, which change your hormones, which change everything. So really getting oriented in clean living water is like a huge one. And then moving into food and moving into organic, like straight up organic is base. Organic is not even that great, you know. I mean, as far as they're still using municipal water, and it's probably being like sprayed by chemtrails above, and there's still heavy metals in it, and so organic's just like bare minimum standard. And as much as you can do like local organic, and even if you can grow your own food, but at least local organic, heirloom, I mean, that's gonna start being really good. So just going up that is going to, just that would be life changing. The next easy thing is to get off gluten, and processed foods. I guess I have to remember that, like, because we make, you know, 99% of our own food, so that's not normal. So processed foods, so being aware, because most grab and go, or most, you know, any of that bags of chips and things, it's like, you know,
they're organic now.
Getting organic ones, you know, looking at the quality of the oils, you know, like so just looking at quality, really quality control before anything else is. And that's doable. Those are all just, oh, do I choose this? Do I choose this? You know, like, instead of this bottled water, let me go get this, you know? So those are just quite kind of like simple upgrades.
I know this is validating for me, because it wasn't necessarily a concerted effort on my part, but I started to have various things happen, or that I did step by step do, and you're ticking them off here. So one of the things I did with water, and you probably have different recommendations too, I got what's called a Berkey.
What is that? I've never heard
you don't use the Berkey? It's a filter. It's a filter that you can put your tap water in, or whatever your regular water is, and it filters out all the nasty stuff you don't want in there, and basically cleans it. So I felt the difference. And now I'm actually living out in the woods where we're on well water, which is nice. So we've got much more fresh water right straight out of the ground underneath us. So what do you suggest? What do you do around water? So you were doing the spring thing with the plastic. So how did you get around the plastic stuff?
We found this one company that creates plastic for beer and wine storage, so it doesn't leach. It's like almost as good as glass, but it's light.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link so you can put it in there.
Okay.
And it's the first time I've seen it. So like ideally glass, but that's like heavy and can be expensive. So we transferred over to that type of plastic, and that's been huge. And then having things like, we have a structurizer, so to like make the water alive again, even though we're getting like pretty good, like clean spring water, putting like shungite and structurizing things that balance it, amethyst crystal, like in the water, of course, blessing it, just being intentional. And then around the water too, and the food, is the minerals, because minerals have been stripped out of the soil. We're just not getting the minerals we need. And I felt that's one of the things, as you upgrade, like in the diet, you start to live off of minerals. So that's one of the transitionary things from actually like food to just like prana is minerals. And since I've been really taking daily minerals of different kinds in my water or just straight, it's really helped my energy. Because a lot of people, when it's like, oh, I'm low energy, and then it's like reach for the coffee or reach for the chocolate, you know, it's reach for the sugar. It's like, no, you just need some minerals, you know?
Especially when you're upgrading and all this higher energetic stuff is running through you, it's kind of stripping some of those things out, is my understanding. So it's important, and they're stripped out of a lot of our agricultural practices anyway, right? We're not getting them the way we used to get them, say, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Great. Oxygen. So I love that too, right from the beginning with the breathing. You mentioned cleansing. Where do you stand on that? I mean, part of this is as you switch over and do these things, you're going to be naturally cleansing out.
Yeah. Just it's kind of giving space for natural detoxification. So like one of the easiest ways is just to end eating by like 5 or 6 at night, and then to not eat again until, 9 a.m. the next morning. So allowing just like time for the body to naturally detox, and then facilitate that detox, because the body naturally wants to. So it's like, I'll do something like, okay, end eating at 6, wake up that next day, don't eat anything, hydrate, mineralize, go to yoga. And it's like so much of the detox just wants to happen through the skin, wants to happen through our mouth. So it's like, tongue scraping and oil pulling, and it's just like letting it come out, and that's part of like the synthetic clothing too. It's like it can't get out, and it just like wants to detox. So some kind of practice where you can really sweat, where you can really like get it out of your system,
release it.
Yeah. And then of course just like cleansing practices, whether it's like a juice fast or a fast, or there's on the Ayurvedic front, which has been very interesting to explore, through oil. Like they have deep oil practices where you do abhyanga, and like you oil yourself and you oil yourself, and it actually drives the toxins like out of your skin through the oil, and oiling the internal. So it's like, and really like, and because some of what can happen in like the charcoal or clays, like those kinds of things where you're pulling out the heavy metals, it dries up the intestinal tract. So keeping it very like lubricated and oiled actually helps the digestive tract too. So that's why like pulling from the different lineages and not just sticking to one, because there is a lot of wisdom in all of them, and figuring out where your weak point is. Is your weak point your gut, which most people's is? And then it's like, well, eating just like straight raw food on a gut that hasn't been healed and it's just coming off of, normal food, it can't even process it. It needs to be rehabilitated. So it's like getting the fermented foods, getting the probiotics, getting the oils, like doing all these different things to then be able to process more raw foods. So it's really just kind of like getting an assessment and working with people on where you're at, where you're personally at, and bringing in all the different components. Yeah.
And listening to you too, I would guess my folks are listening to this. Some of them have already started this journey and this process with it. Others, this is going to be a little more educational for them. Sometimes I would, it can sound overwhelming. So I would just say, hang in there, take in whatever resonates or trickled through out of what Bridget just shared here. And obviously she's a good go-to source. So this is part of your offerings too, right? This is part of what you'll help and assist people with direct coaching. And you're creating will be creating some products that help people get educated about this and start to make some of these changes.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thanks. That helps. That's what I wanted to make sure we got into some of those practicalities around the vibrational food, because as people are waking up, and as the energetics are waking people up and changing all of us, that it's this, part of this synthetic organic battling it out that's going on, right? And this is part of that organic flow, back to naturalness of things, as opposed to all this synthetic and artificial that we're being impacted by.
Yeah, absolutely.
We kind of brought your, explained your path, kind of brought it up to the now, and talked about one of these more recent offerings of yours on piggybacking off of the hybrid children stuff that you've done for quite some time. Now you're moving into the vibrational food. Anything else that you want to share about who's Bridget's future self here? What's the essence of what you see unfolding and where you're being more of service here?
Yeah, it's really, I'm being directed into holistic lifestyle, and holistic lifestyle being location, so like sacred sites, places that are energetically supportive, the food, the lifestyle, you expressing yourself, in the exact way that you want to, community, coming back into harmony, with earth, and of course connecting in with our like higher energetic selves. So of course the spirituality and all of those practices, and then of course the cosmos, and so and structures like kind of the old structure and the new structure. So it's really, I'm in a place of developing and clarifying, just like even for myself, what new structures would be conducive for me? What would be for other people? And how can we do this? How can we bring in this new world?
Yeah. And through the individual, right? As we're each figuring this out, and then also through the collective.
Yeah.
It's happening overall. There's a wave that's going to be changing these things. So super cool. Yeah. And your dad, Kirk, is he, when we had conversations in Mexico, he was really, from his builder architect kind of background, he's really interested in the physical structures, right? Where people are living, and how can we create different kinds of physical structures and to support these communities in this more holistic way of being.
Oh yeah. It's like these 90-degree angles. No bueno. Like the fact that if you can even recall your dreams, if you can have these spiritual experiences in 90-degree angles, you're doing super good. Like, cause it's designed to not even have you be able to. So his whole thing is coming back into the right geometries and the right materials of what we need to actually be living in to be able to have these experiences and to just be relaxed in our natural selves. So that's his big thing. And where he's at with it right now is he's getting into a system of setting up different trust community houses that are investment properties for the greater community, and different sacred sites, and all the different sacred sites, so that people could come live in them actually for free and orbit and be living their passion in them. And then once those kind of are the breeding support for the greater communities, then to actually buy land in these different sacred sites and build domed and round and pyramidal and all different kinds of supportive structures, and then of course integrating the water and the permaculture and the land and bringing all that in. So that's his big thing, and he's well on his way to start doing that. Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by that. And as I've moved more out into the woods, now the next thing is what about creating a different kind of structure? I'm really, I keep jonesing on the YouTube videos about the underground houses, not fully underground, right? But
how to live in.
And using the natural local resources and land and stuff, earth, right, to create these adobe kind of places. And it's super cool what's going on out there and what people are experimenting with. Even the container homes too. Maybe that material is not that hot, but the whole idea of reusing, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I just flashed on the screen here. I'll get more doodles and stuff up. It's a little hard to get them all in while I'm doing multiple things, but we've really filled this page out nicely about the 2 topics and more that emerged here that I wanted to talk about. I'll put that up for everybody later, just kind of the little cheat sheet notes as we're going along about the main things that Bridget was covering here. I'm going to ask you maybe as a closing, you're intuitive, maybe you'll tap into this, whoever's watching this, right? Who's going to be watching this and in the future, and anything you want to say to them as kind of closing thoughts. We have your video or your URL here on the video, so people know where to get a hold of you. So let us know if there's anywhere else that you'd want to direct people to besides that main website. And then anything we want to say is kind of closing thoughts to the folks that will be watching this.
Yeah, I would just say that continuing to go in and to continue going to the natural, and if there's just a little bit every day that we can work towards going back to that natural space within and in our environments, everything will be fine as we transition into this new world. And it will give that anchoring fire and flame of knowingness and what to do, how to move in as the world's changing, as everything's changing, with that rooted anchoring tree. So find your inner tree, and that will really help navigate as in the changing times and the changing energies. Just go back to that. Just go back to your natural self. Go back to that.
And that's what we can each do, right? Because it can seem overwhelming and we're not in control of a lot of these larger things that are going on with various secret space programs and technology or whatever it might be, right? And the larger cosmic shift that's happening. But we can, I love what you're saying, tap into our own, we can do changes to go more natural and go more organic and more grounded, and then go within and it'll be revealed, right? What our own individual steps are in this gigantic shift that's going on.
Yep, absolutely, for sure. So yeah, that's just, it's simple, but it's wow. I mean, to actually get off the computer and phones and actually do that, that's another thing. So, but it's well worth it, so that, and as far as my links, yeah, just my website. Is that what you have linked?
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, make sure we've got the right one listed underneath, but yeah.
Yeah, website, YouTube, and I'm on all the other social medias too. And so, yeah, connect with me.
With that little space of time that you're connecting on electronics and then go out into the natural world. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Make it really worth it, like something like this, like watching something like this and working, of course, with you. And then it's okay, now I got it. Let's go.
Yeah, totally. Finding our balance in all of this. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your journey so genuinely and authentically. You're a real inspiration for a lot of people and a real model of how to be you, how to be the true you, right? And so each person can tap into what the true you is for them and be that. And you're really doing it in your own way. So I applaud you in doing that. And I'll keep watching and see how you're unfolding here and what's coming next. And thank you again for sharing this information, and hopefully it'll direct some more people to take care of these things that we've been talking about, especially this vibrational food aspect of things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You're rocking it in every way, balancing the left and the right and brain and just opening up to the spiritual and letting that flow. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thanks, hon. Okay, see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.